Welcome to the Raw and Real podcast, a space for honest conversations about life in all its messy, beautiful complexity. Here we go deep, exploring the vulnerable, the meaningful, and the moments that truly shape who we are. Nothing's off limits. These are unfiltered conversations about life where we're not afraid of talking about the hard stuff. No masks, no filters, we're just real people with real stories. Let's get into it.
Well, welcome back everyone to the Raw and Real podcast conversations with Julie and Sonia. I'm Sonia, and this is Julie. And today we've got a great conversation lined up. But before we do begin, we just wanted to share with you our process for coming up with these conversations. We have been asked, how do you know what to talk about? How do you prepare for your podcast? So we thought we'd share a little bit about that process, because I think it's a little bit different to a lot of podcasts out there. So in actual fact, Julie and I don't prepare anything for these conversations. What we do is we tune in, and what that means is we connect to our intuition, and usually a topic comes through and we pick that topic, and there's no preparation. It's just setting an intention on the day to allow for wisdom and truth about that topic to come through, and we just go for it. So we don't actually know what's going to be said in any conversation that we have. We just try to be really present in the moment, and as I said, allow for what's meant to come through, what's meant for you to hear and for us to talk about, just to come through. So that's just a little bit about our process. So I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. I'm going to hand over to you, Julie, to introduce it.
Thank you. It's great to let our audience know that how we come up with these conversations, and hence that's why we named ourselves Raw and Real. It's just raw, it's real, it's on the spot. We don't know what's going to come through, so it's exciting, and it leads me into what today's topic is all about, is acting from fear. When you go for something and fear stops you, instead of acting from the place of love and what you really want. And no other place has shown me the fear that I sometimes feel is doing these talks, these conversations, because fear it causes the critical voices in your head to come out, and pays attention to them. And am I good enough? Am I smart enough? What am I doing? Why even try? So you get all these voices in your head where you're coming from absolute fear. And I feel it physically in my body, in my stomach. It does somersaults, and I do lots of other things, and we're going to go into talking about that. But I just wanted to introduce our topic about fear and how it stops us from going for what we love. And I would love to talk to you about that, Sonia. When you go for something and you really want it, but that fear or those voices in your head that come through and go, maybe not today. I'm not good enough. No one's going to listen. I'm just talking absolute BS. All those things are just, they literally stop you from going for what you want. When those critical voices come in your head, you don't even begin sometimes. So how do you experience it? Do you feel it in your body? What do you do? Do you procrastinate? For me, sometimes I laugh at myself. I'll go and hang the washing on the line, or I'll do something in the house. It's just irrelevant to what I'm doing. But I find it gives me that relief. I need to get this done. It is not relevant. It's not going to get me to what I want to do. But I laugh because I can't bloody stand doing the housework at this point in my life. And so I'm sick to death of it, but I'm happy to choose it over going for what I love. So fear, it's a great topic, and it's great to be aware of it because it stops me.
I wanted to actually start, you mentioned something like going for what you love and how fear stops us from going for what you love. But that triggered something in me in saying, there was a time when I didn't even know what I love. And what would I want? What would I like if I could have anything? What could I have? What would I want? What would I love? And I'm talking about in my adulthood. I reckon when we were younger, as a teenager, the world is your oyster, right? I could have anything. I could be anything. And I remember some wild dreams. But the older I've become, the less and less I've actually been able to dream and imagine and actually allow myself to want and love something that's outside of my ordinary life. And it got to the point where it's not even like, I didn't even know what I did, wouldn't even allow myself to go there. So I think that that's fear, and it's unconscious fear, not even knowing that there is this possibility of having what you love, of doing something out of the ordinary, of stepping out and being out there. And I think that's step one.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to highlight that, because I know there's probably people out there that go, well, I don't know what I'd love. And I totally get it, because I know that I couldn't even imagine anything beyond the the three kids and the house and the career. That was it. I was always meant to want. That was all I was meant to love. And I had it, and it was like, this isn't what I want. These are great things, but I want more. And was I allowed to have more? Was I allowing myself to have more? No, because I didn't believe that was possible.
So you're saying that unconsciously fear was stopping you from dreaming?
I think fear of even just losing what I have, because it's not that what I have is, I don't want that. It's, I love that. And this, I wanted more. There is more, but just the fear of wanting more at risk of losing what's already here, or of putting myself out there. I don't even think I knew any of that, because it was not even allowing myself to dream.
So you make a really good point, and it's quite a deep point, that you're not actually going for what you want. You're not allowing yourself to dream because you've got a fear around a few things: fear of not knowing what you want, fear of that you'll lose your family and the connections that you have. And then there's that fear of actually when you go to do it, when you work out what you want, then the fear and these beliefs come up, and you just take that chokehold and just go, I can't do it. So it's really important to be aware of what fear is actually for you. What's the meaning behind the fear? Because it goes deeper levels, doesn't it? Just besides the fact that, oh my God, what are people going to think when we put this out here? Or one of my fears is what is huge is what are people going to think of me? And putting this out into the world and doing our podcast and doing these conversations with no structure brought up my fear you would not believe. It was just like, oh, how's it gonna? So those critical voices come back into your head. Am I going to make sense? Am I going to connect with people? And my biggest one is, what are people going to think? And luckily enough, I've learnt to overcome that. I've learnt how to tame that, and we can talk about that later. But it's huge for me is, what are people going to think of me? And at the end of the day, no one really gives a hoot what I'm doing, what I'm saying. It's just all the stories I tell myself in my head. I'm pretty sure I could probably say 99.9%, besides maybe my husband, wonder what Julie's going to get up to today. Nobody is thinking that. And nobody's thinking when I put this stuff out there, what the hell is she doing that for? And if it's a reflection on them.
Exactly. But it's a point of, let's put this podcast for an example. Back in the day, I would never even have dreamed about creating a podcast, let alone actually taken any steps to do it. But it's the dreaming itself, the vision, the idea of it. I don't think that even when you're in that state of you just don't allow yourself to step outside of what's normal, what's comfortable, because there is a fear of what's outside of that bubble. Who are you going to become? What's going to happen to the world that you live in already, people around you? What's going to happen? Like that fear of the unknown, of when you step outside of that comfort zone, outside of that comfortable bubble of the family home, the career, and the three kids, what happens when you go outside of that? And that, I think that in particular just stopped me from taking any action. Right. Now we're at a point here where we're doing this podcast, and fear comes up all the time. And I think it's so important for people to know that we're not the only ones. Whenever anyone's doing anything big or anything beyond their comfort zone, it is always scary. And people are doing it despite the fear, not because they've overcome the fear. And I think that's a really important thing that I never knew, right? I was like waiting for the fear to dissipate, waiting for that fear to go away, somehow to become better, become stronger, get more skills. But that's never, ever going to go away completely. The only thing that gets rid of that fear is just doing it.
100%. Because whatever we go for, something is going to show up and the fear is going to come through. So it's stepping through that fear. So can I ask you, how do you feel fear? How does it, just to our audience, because people can feel fear in so many different ways. For me, it was physically. Once upon a time, my throat would clam up and I wouldn't even be able to speak. So I have a real physical reaction to it, as well as what are people going to think? I've already mentioned, but how does it come through for you?
I also get a very physical reaction as well. I'm just stuck, completely frozen in space. And I have a fear. I just can't take any action. I don't want to do anything to get me outside of that stuckness. It's literally feeling very stuck. I get into that. We talked about this in our last conversation, the eating. And so that's my sidestep. I need to take an action that's towards something that I'd love, but there's so much fear. Instead, I go and eat something terrible and just numb that feeling in my body. Avoidance, I think procrastination is another, right? You mentioned it earlier, go and hang the clothes out. I'll make sure that house is clean. When my house is clean, then I'm not creative. When my house is clean, I'm not in my creative self, because I've gone to clean my house instead of spending time doing what I need to do creatively. So that's like a big, and I know everyone has their own little thing, but that's my little flag. Hey, house is clean. You're not focusing on the things that you want. These sorts of things that I do that I notice. But the biggest feeling is a physical feeling of feeling stuck, and even throat, not wanting to speak, not shutting down, close, and it's literally like a closing in on myself. Yeah.
So you would say when you feel this way, you do incidental activities, your house is spotless, you eat or whatever, and we all have our vices how to do it. But when you're doing it, do you know you're doing it? Do you realize I'm just curious to say you go for something and you kind of stop and then you go and do stuff. Do you rationalize that in your mind? Oh, well, the house needs cleaning anyway. If the kids haven't got clean clothes, or if the towels aren't washed, or God forbid, if there was a crumb on the floor, my life is not going to function. Do you know what I'm trying to get at? Like, you rationalize the fear and let it, like, because I know that I can rationalize it and that's my way of getting out of it. Well, this stuff needs doing. Who else is going to do it? So I make it okay.
Oh, 100%. I do that too. I think there's some awareness about it, but as I said before, doesn't necessarily mean that I don't do it. Like, I'm aware, but there's stuff like I think that there's, for example, for this podcast or any other creative outlet, well, everyone else isn't doing that kind of stuff. Everyone else is just living their life and just doing what's normal. Maybe I should just do that. And then I sort of take my focus away from the creative things that I enjoy and that fill me up as an avoidant behavior, and then go into my procrastinating. That's often what I'll do. There is I think there's a lot of mind games, but for me, really, it's a shutdown of my whole being to the point where I feel nothing. I think become very good at just, I think that might be called dissociation, right? Of shutting down and going, and just, I might even at the worst get sick, make myself sick, but it really is shutting down. But underneath all of that is that I'm not good enough. What will people think of me? What will people say? People are going to talk behind my back. I don't have what it takes. I'm not capable.
And I do that as well. And it's really important to understand that and to name it, because it's just going to keep persisting if you don't name it and be aware of it. Why am I doing this? And I can relate to everybody else is just doing this and getting on with life. Why the hell do I want to go out and get out of my comfort zone and be out of my bubble and make myself feel really uncomfortable and put myself out there and for everyone? And it's because being comfortable in the uncomfortable is really important.
Yeah.
And facing the fear.
I think we are beings who are meant to evolve and grow. If you look at anything else in nature, I love observing plants and trees because they are constantly growing and evolving. And I sort of put myself as like, I'm a tree, right? We are part of nature. And we are also meant to evolve and grow. And I know, at least for myself, when I'm not doing that, life feels really stagnant. And I know not everyone actually has that belief. I've come across people who disagree with that, and that's fine. But my personal opinion is that we are meant to grow and evolve. And that's when I feel my fullest. That's where my heart feels full. And this whole thought of this possibility, because in that is possibility. What can I grow into? What can I experience? When you're in that state of growing, anything is possible, right? There is an unknown, and that's scary. But on the other flip side of that, there's this possibility of what's out there. What could I possibly experience? What are the things that I'd love to experience in this lifetime?
And growth is messy. You talk about a tree. I have two beautiful jacaranda trees that have the most beautiful, amazing flower of purple. And there's times when they're stripped bare. They're growing and they're evolving, and it's messy and it doesn't always look great, but they keep growing. They don't stop because they're going to be, oh, she's going to think I look ugly because I've got no leaves, or you know what I mean? To come back to that analogy, trees don't have emotions, but if you can relate to a tree of how it grows and coming into autumn and now winter when all the trees shed their leaves, they're growing for the next new spring to come through. So they're evolving, and it's messy and uncomfortable. And that's what we have to do. And that's how we cannot let our fear stop us from going for what we love. So I suppose we need to reorientate into the emotions. Why, when you go for something and fear comes up, it's going to happen. And
Mm-hmm.
you name it and you go, okay, so I'm feeling fearful because I'm worried about what Joe Blow down the road is going to think of me. I'm actually fearful of what I think of myself, to be honest, as well. There. So, what do you do? I will name a few things that I do to get through that fear to go for what we love. And for me, the most important thing is realizing, why am I doing this? What am I doing what I want to do for? What is my vision? And just tuning into the emotions of that. Because if we don't name the fear, it's just going to stay there. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
if we understand where it's coming from, then you can tame it basically. And it helps you move forward. Visualizing what I'm going for. It's understanding where the fear is coming from and what beliefs. And I have a belief of, this is not even going to, why am I doing it? It's not going to work. But I flip that on its head and go, what actually happens if it does work? This could work. So it's not easy because the fear is.
I think you make a great point. It's so important to name the fear and be aware of it, because it's actually operating there all the time, whether you name it or not. It's there. You cannot shove it away. You cannot push it aside. It's there, right? And by naming it, it's almost like you're saying, hey, come along for the ride. Come and I've got this, and let's go. Because I know that what I'm really starting to learn is really tuning into getting a sense of, when I want to do something, am I choosing something because of fear, or am I choosing something because it's what I would really love? So, for example, this podcast. Do I choose to take action on this because I love it and I want it to succeed and I want to share our wisdom with other people? I want people to see the possibility of something more. Or do I actually not take action because of all the fears that are sitting there and are always there? What are people going to say? I don't know what I'm talking about. All that stuff. Maybe I don't know. But that could actually stop me from doing anything. Or there's always two sides. There's always the fear, and there's always what you'd love. And you can choose either one, right? You can choose to take action from, is fear driving my action, or is it what I'd love to driving my action? And it's not easier to take the action that's driven by what you love. It's actually not easier. It's harder.
And the opposite of love is fear. We often think the opposite of fear, love is hate, but the opposite of love is fear. So it's really good to be aware of what you love and take action from there rather than I fear this, so I'm not going to do it and then stay stagnant. And you could look back in 5 years' time and go, I'm still in the same position where I am now because I let the fear take control instead of going for the stuff that I love to do.
And I think that's where, if you don't know what you love, I'm going to argue that you actually do, just not connected to it, right? Because I would have told you 5 years ago, I don't know what I would want. I don't know. But there's always a little breadcrumb inside that's saying, this is what, go here, look, like, write that book, or
I agree.
or whatever it is, it's there. It's a little whisper nudging at you. Hey, come on, we ignore it.
We do, because we have the critical voices in our head, like I said before, when we go for something, but also in those still moments when you're quiet and your mind's just emptied out and you're not thinking, you do actually have another side of your mind where your intuition and those little ideas and those little things that you would love to do come in. But the fear comes in, so you don't allow those thoughts to evolve or those ideas to evolve because you just sit in the comfortable position, which I can totally relate to, and stay safe. And
I'm going to argue that's why many people don't actually be still, right? Because if you're constantly busy, always have music on, always have something on in the background, always doing, it's easy to ignore that little nudge inside because you can't hear it. But as soon as you as soon as you go into stillness, it's calling you, it's nudging you, it's poking you, and you can't ignore it. And that's where this dissonance exists between what you love and the life that you're currently living. There's this gap becomes very apparent as soon as you start hearing that voice. And then you're really then it's like, do I stay with where I'm at? Or do I actually take some steps towards what this little whisper is asking of me? And that's where I go then you've got two options. Do I act from fear and stay in that comfort zone because fear is driving my action? Or do I take action from what I love, what's in there, and another tiny step forward and then move towards what you love?
so going forward, I suppose people really need to find out, well, I don't suppose, you really need to tune into those, to be still and tune into what drops into your head. And it's called intuition, and we all know about intuition. Those just little thoughts and ideas that come into your mind, and listen to them and nurture them. And I'm not saying go out and go from having a thought of writing a book to the next day starting to write the next chapter. It's just to face your fear and to move forward. It's just taking little steps one by one, just doing one step and feeling how uncomfortable that was, but know you got through it. You're still alive. No one's criticizing you. And if they are, that's a conversation for another day. And just keep taking the next steps. And it gets easier, as in you get more comfortable with being in the uncomfortable. It's probably never going to get easier, but there's always that next step where you go, oh, but you can do it.
And I'm going to actually point out that I think there'll be people out there who go, well, I'm not afraid of anything. I'm not afraid of writing that book. There's not fear that's holding me back. I just don't want to, or it's just not the time now. There's other priorities right now. And I'm going to go, BS, right? It's, yes, you might not label it as fear, but the beliefs that are underneath that we spoke about earlier, that I'm not good enough, it's not, even if it's not time yet, what does that mean? It's not time for you. It's not time for your dreams. When is it time for you? All of those little beliefs that are underneath the excuse or why you're saying you can't do it now are actually driven. That's actually fear. You might not say it's fear, but it is. That's they're all fear-based. So I just want to call that out because I know that happens. I know people put things on the back burner because they say it's not time yet, or I'm going to wait for this to happen. I'm going to wait for the kids to finish school.
It's an excuse.
I've
used excuses.
Me too. That's why I'm saying it, because I've identified with it. I know.
And in your mind, you're actually telling yourself, but I don't have time. You don't understand my life. I've got this going on. But when it's, I think it relates to a lot to mums as well. We use the excuse of, I've got a family, I work. That's not an excuse. I should rephrase that because you are busy, but you can make time. There's times when you, and I am so guilty of this, would sit down and watch TV for an hour or two, or whatever it is, cleaning the house, whatever, like you have time and you probably just don't realize you're not going for it or you're using the excuses because you're actually fearful.
I'm going to suggest that people just take a look at how they spend their time. If time is the excuse, then, or the reason, then take a look at where you're spending time. I know that if I'm not focused on the things that I want to create, I can easily spend 2 hours on Instagram. Easily. Right? Just the time goes on. I'm not saying everyone does that, but that happens. It's very easy to do. Flicking back and forth between Facebook and Instagram. I can't tell you how many times a day I can do that just to procrastinate and avoid what I really want to do.
Yes, because at the end of the day, there's that fear of going for what you love.
So I think because we've seen it, we've been through it, it's very easy to see it in other people. That's, pull that card.
It is so easy to see it in other people. I see it in our, and I'm sure you do in your clients as well. When you talk to them about, oh, I don't have time or this is happening, and you just go those layers deep. So that's happening, and you just go deeper and deeper, and they get to the bottom line. I don't want to do it. I'm too scared.
And I think that's the red flag or the big sign that should say here is anything that you're avoiding, the thing that you're avoiding the most is going to be the most value to you.
Absolutely.
So when you notice that you're avoiding writing that book or creating whatever it is that you want to create, it doesn't even have to be a big thing. You just be like, I just want to go draw, or I just want to go write in my diary. Just whenever you're avoiding those things, and if you notice a pattern in that, that's a big signpost saying, hey, that's important to you. That's important to your growth and evolution.
I think that's the perfect way to end it. Just realizing the thing that you avoid or procrastinate against the most is what's really true for you, and it's what's going to make you the happiest.
And don't let fear hold you back, because on the other side of that fear is magic and fulfillment. Thanks, Julie.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you for everyone listening.
See you next time.
Bye.